Alrighty, traders, let's jump into the Wednesday, September 27, 2023 trade reviews and a little bit of market review here as well. Let's start with the markets and what happened in the markets today. Well, technically, a whole lot of nothing happened today. So a big down day at the open. Then a little bit of a climb back in the afternoon to close pretty much flat on the session. So a whole lot of nothing happened by the end of the day. It was almost like the day didn't exist. However, intraday, things got a little ugly. And let's just jump into where things were on it. So if we take a look at the daily here on the right-hand chart, obviously this head and shoulders, we broke the neckline back in here around 433. This thing has been heading lower. Today, as we kind of expected, we came down, we filled this gap that was created back here on this move, on this gap up on 6.2. So we came down, we filled the gap. Once that gap was filled, markets rose the rest of the session for the most part. Didn't hit new highs on the session, but managed to just put in just a fractionally bigger high. We remain quite a bit oversold down in here, but we can stay there for a while, as we are aware. On the weekly, still MACD falling, RSI is falling, still a lower low significantly here in this downtrend. We can start to build a little bit of a channel, though, in here. So let's take a look at what that looks like now. This is something we'll keep an eye on is, does this channel hold true? How far does it go on the markets? Really doesn't line up with anything up here, but we'll keep an eye on this particular channel that we've got on the downside. But as long as we stay in this channel, it's just a series of lower highs and lower lows. However, we'll see if we get some kind of bounce or something in there. Markets are primed, I think, to get a relief bounce at some point here. Now, is that going to mean we're off to the races again, or is that just going to be, a new lower high? We'll see what happens. We'll pull that out. But we did gap fill this gap on the session today on both SPX and on SPY. SPX not quite so much. SPY definitely filled that gap on the day, and then we bounced off of that level. So it was a good support level to get into on the session. Unfortunately, that bounce came a little late in the session and not enough time to save our 0 DTE trade for the day that we had to close out because the markets just kept heading lower. All right, if we look at the Qs here, again, we broke through the neckline on this head and shoulders. We're heading lower. We've got the 38.2 fib here around 350. We did again bounce on the session. Once we got extended past the 3 ATR, we bounced back up. Pretty much the exact same looking thing. We were oversold on RSI, maybe looking to reverse. MACD giving us a little bit of a one-day reversal. Let's see if we get two in a row, and maybe we get a little bounce out of this. However, the weekly is telling you don't get too excited because MACD and RSI continue to head lower, with RSI breaking below 50 and heading south. We take a look at IWM on the session. Very similar story. However, we didn't close as near the highs as we did in the other two. However, it was still a pretty good recovery day. We didn't actually hit new lows on the session. So we did drop, or we did jump up a bit on the session, ran higher, finished off those highs, but then closed higher than we started. So overall, decent looking action as we hit this trend line on IWM. So something we'll keep an eye on is, does this trend line now, this uptrending line, does this hold? Do we come back up and fill this gap up to about 180 or so? So that's the next target right now, is if we continue to bounce or get some positive out of this. And right now, and after our sessions, we might be looking a bit higher. We'll see how things go. But do we bounce and then get a move back, at least to fill the gap that's above us here? So we'll keep an eye on this gap. We'll see where it goes to down the road. But overall, constructive day. RSI oversold, moving higher. But the weekly, still same story, heading lower. MACD, RSI heading lower. The number of companies above their 50-day moving average, dropped to one of the lowest readings of the year, second lowest only to this reading back in March on the big dip lower. So we are almost at the lows of the year. So we'll see what happens on that. But RSI oversold on the daily. MACD's trying to reverse a bit. So we'll see what happens in here. But this is a fairly bullish area to be in down here. When you see it getting this extended, we usually get a pretty good snapback. And if you consider where we were on March 13th, we ran all the way to the July highs. And if we take a look at SPY, where were we on March 13th? Well, this was the low on March 13th, and then we ran to those highs. So the put call, or the 50 moving average number of stocks in the ES, pretty telling that when it got here and it snapped, that was when the markets were off to the races. We're almost to that exact same level, right at the bottom of this Bollinger Band, and we're at a 3 ATR back here, which we have not been at for at least a month or so here. So we'll see what happens. It can still continue to move lower. We'll keep an eye on it. Put call ratio moved even higher on the session. So pretty wide range, but overall, it closed up on the session. So the put call ratio getting higher and higher, meaning there's a lot of puts out there, which is also a fairly bearish signal for some kind of a move lower. This is one of the highest readings that we've been at, at least the highest closing reading we've been at since about March 6th. All right, VIX didn't do a whole lot of anything on the session today. It managed to drop back to the lower 18 move and changed. Now, the dollar did move up on the session. So the dollar moved once again higher. It got it high, and then it ran on the day up to this 3 ATR move, breaking through it a tad, and then closing right on it, right on the Bollinger Band. So the dollar is what's mucking everything up right now. The stronger the dollar is getting, okay, the more struggles the market is having, gold is having. Everything's kind of predicated on what the dollar is doing, which is really predicated on what rates are doing. So if we look at rates today, you can see here on the right-hand chart, on the daily chart here, another breaking new high. So we've now set yet another new high on rates, getting all the way up to 4.62. So 4.62%, very overbought, moving higher. Overbought on the daily, overbought on the weekly. MACD is moving higher. The rates are out of control. So because rates are out of control, it's also, again, pulling that dollar up. And it's also just clobbering TLT, which got hammered yet again today. Another recent low, just breaking down completely. MACD, RSI, both heading lower on the daily, weekly. However, we are in oversold territory. We'll see how long we stay there, but right now, these downtrends, these two different downtrends we identified the other day, they're still in plenty of action, so there's just nothing positive on TLT. I won't beat that horse to death here on that. All right, so on the Aussie dollar, a pretty significant down session today, closing quite a bit lower, so had a pretty good down day, which it's been hanging in there pretty well, and then today it just finally gave up the ghost a bit as the MACD and RSI just pushing lower. It finally just gave in a bit, so we'll see how markets react, but that was a pretty good move lower on the Aussie dollar, which is totally fine because we have a 112 trade, so if we want to get into that trap, that would be fantastic. 6B, the British pound, just another bad down day. It continues to fall. The Canadian dollar, which has been hanging in there pretty decently, actually had a decent day on the session. It rallied a little bit and moved above its 21 moving average. And then here on the euro, just another horrific day on the euro, just tanking completely on the session. It just gave it up. which caused us to drop out of a strangle trade that we had on. So we did close it for a loss on the session. So we take a strangle trade loss today. We'll review the portfolio in just a bit. Oil, another big day. So oil continues to climb, having a huge day today. I mean, oil just spiked, gapping up or opening at 90.46, closing all the way up at 93, and in after hours, it continues to move higher. Oil is just going crazy higher. If you're long it, fantastic. If you've got strangles, it's not as great. We've got two strangles, one not as looking that great, but it's okay. And the other ones, we've got two 112 trades, which are in really good shape. In fact, we took naked puts off of one trade today for a nice winner in oil 112. So that's working perfectly. But I mean, if you think inflation's coming down with oil setting new highs, or at least new recent highs, it ain't. So oil is going to continue to move higher here. Got back to this previous resistance level and looks to be possibly breaking through it. So oil is on fire, no pun intended. And then gold just having a horrific 3 days. I mean, this is a terrible week for gold. This is one of the largest down weeks in gold that I have seen in quite some time. You got to go all the way back here to January 30th to see something this bad in gold. Now, we did have a pretty good stretch back here heading down, but nothing as big of a down day or down week as we have had so far. The week's not over. We could bounce, but as bad as this up week was for us, these down weeks aren't so great when they're this huge. Gold volatility really rose significantly today. So not only did gold fall, breaking support, coming down here, cranking through the 3 ATR, getting very oversold on the daily, but the weekly still dropping, so there could still be some more pain to go. We'll keep an eye on it. Maybe we thought we could get some support up here at the 328 fib. That did not hold on the weekly. We smashed through that level today, as well as this other support level that we had previously made. So those are no longer valid. And it could be a flip, a support resistance flip level. We'll see what happens. But right now, the next thing we're eyeing is going to be this level in here, about 1880, and then the 1852, which is the 50% retracement of the bigger move here. So right now, gold not looking too great, but again, like everything else, is getting oversold. Let's take a look quickly at the sectors, led massively by the oil sector today, up almost 3%. XLE in tow, 2.5% up. Okay. XBI as well, up 1%. And then industrials, XLI, up 0.7%. And then on the downside, it was utilities getting absolutely crushed for the second straight day. Utilities are getting absolutely murdered. Second worst sector was real estate. And then, we move up XPH, XLP, regionals, healthcare. We actually closed mildly positive on XLK today. So as I mentioned earlier, when we talked about the Qs, just a mild update. We'll see what happens. And then overall, Amazon finished dead flat on the day. Apple did finish down. It was the one of the worst performing, along with Tesla out there. Microsoft up fractionally. Now Meta, do like what we're seeing in Meta. It broke significantly down and then closed up and held the 50. It's hanging in there pretty good. It is still technically above the 50 and right at the 21. If we look at Microsoft, well below it. Apple, well below both and falling. Amazon, well below both and falling. Google, below both, although trying to recover the 50. NVIDIA, below both and falling. Tesla, below both and falling. Netflix, below both and falling. CRM, below both and falling. But Meta, no. Meta is above the 50 and sitting very close to the 21 EMA. So this is not looking as bad as many of the other ones. I think if we get an up day, it's going to be led by Meta. in here. So overall, we don't see a terrible MACD or RSI on the weekly at all. Just this sideways pennant action, which really could give us a break if we break through this 308 level. So we'll keep an eye on that. And if we look over here on the daily, yeah, RSI is falling, but it is not a big falling drop like many of the other ones are. If we take a quick look at like Microsoft or something, look at that RSI just falling on Apple, Amazon, all tanking, Google tanking, but Meta, no. So Meta looks really pretty decent in here. We'll keep an eye on how Meta goes on the session. All right, let's look into the account really quick and take a look at what happened in the account today. Ended the day with a 425 delta, which is actually pretty good, dropping it back inside the 0.2%. So 0.15 delta, totally fine with me. 1271 on theta, which is 0.44%, is fantastic. So we got great delta, great theta. Net lick took another hit today. So we've taken a pretty significant couple days hit on net lick, but we've really only closed out two losing trades here. So it's really all just in the value of stocks, not in any losses that we've taken for the most part. BP usage fractionally unchanged on the session, 81%, 10% of that is bill. So we'll keep an eye on that, but that means 71%. It's high. It's not panicky level high. So we'll hopefully see some natural easing of this if the markets get any kind of a bounce here. If not, we'll deal with it. Big realized loss though on the day. So we took a good hit on a strangle. We won on another trade and then lost on a 0 DTE today. So that took our monthly realized down. So it's a pretty good hit on the realized. We're still positive on the month, 3,684, up 1.5%, 1.21%. Net lick is now down on the month with the moves the last couple days in the market, last 2-3 days. Let's take a look at those trades and see what happened. And the first one, disappointing, was this 6E strangle. We knew it was coming. You can see it coming, but I just held on until we actually got stopped, of which that did happen today. So we did take our 2x loss, got out of the 6E strangle, so I closed it today. $4,800 loss on the session. However, we did close the naked puts on an oil or CL futures 112. We closed the naked puts for 2 cents on this. So we locked in an 85% profit on this trade, taking in 460 on it. And then a very disappointing 0 DTE day today. And the most disappointing part of this day was the fact that we had a nice winner, but it never hit our 50%. It was only about a 35% winner on the session when the market just started to go sideways. Or I should say the markets went down, but the trade went sideways on us. So trade went down as the markets just kept falling throughout most of the day's session up until about 1 o'clock. So we ended up getting stopped out on this trade at 1:30. If you look at what happened in the markets, the low of the session happened at 1:39. So we were 9 minutes away from a complete rebound and a full win on this thing, and we stopped out at a 2x loss. You play the percentages and you play the your mechanics. You could have let it slide, but I don't. I hit my loss and I'm out of this trade. But if we look at the session, we exited at 122 and at 139 exactly 17 minutes later was the exact low of the session, and it never looked back the rest of the day. In fact, it ran up high. So we would have had a full 100% winner, or at least a 50%, but followed our mechanics and we closed it for a loss. So it took a little bit of a loss on that from a 0 DTE. We've had a really good run the last several weeks, so it's all good. We'll get it back maybe tomorrow even. One thing to take a look at, so we did lose this Strangle today, but I'll give you a sense of where we are. We've got 33 wins, 7 losses on Strangles on futures here. So 33 and 7. And then when we look at the ES and gold, 65 and 5. So overall, we have 98 wins and only 12 losses on Strangles the entire year. That is a 90%, 89% win rate. And we're up about $18,000 in just Strangle money alone. So, you know, it's never fun to take the loss, but I'm being transparent with you guys. I share every single trade, win or lose, with you guys here. I don't know who else does this on the internet. Everybody else has their secret portfolios and they show you their wins. I'm showing you my losses. It sucks, but if you consider that's only the 12th loss out of 110 Strangles this year. So overall, pretty good. We'll take that. It's going to happen. We'll get some winners back and we'll move on. We'll see what else we get closed for the month. We still have a couple more days left in the trading session. All right. If you like the video, guys, again, please click that like button. Give me the thumbs up on that. Subscribe if you're not a member. Hit the notification so you know when we're releasing some new stuff. You guys have a safe couple trading days as we finish out the month of September, which can't probably go away fast enough for many people. Stay safe out there. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.